members of our military might have a hard time casting their vote. Pete Hegseth, a veteran of the U.S. wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, here next with those grim details.
Brian, over to you.
All right, with the presidential election 57 days away, it's essential the citizens have the opportunity to vote this November, right? But for members of the U.S. military, that's easier said than done. Joining us right now, a member of the military who just recently retired, Pete Hegseth, CEO of Concerned Veterans for America. Pete, what's the challenge this year?
The challenge this year is getting absentee ballots out to military members in time for them to come back. Congress passed the MOVE Act in 2009, which was in response to the terrible results of 2008, to try to make sure military members actually voted in this and future election cycles. Well, it turns out the MOVE Act hasn't been implemented as well as it should be, so we still have the same kind of problems we had in 2008. Ballots going out, or they could be going out late if certain states are behind, and we're seeing very low military absentee ballot response rates from certain states, which does not, create a good picture. And
those certain states are swing states. Let's take a look at them now as we view them. And right now you have Florida, Colorado, Ohio, and Virginia. Florida has a request of 15.7%. That's the highest. Then you have 6.2, 3.3, and 1.4. So those requests are in.
Yeah, look at 1.4% of military voters have requested an absentee ballot. That's an incredibly and staggeringly low number. Florida has worked very hard to try to reach out to military voters, and they still only have 15%. A lot of the blame here falls on the Pentagon. We haven't implemented the MOVE Act. We don't have the voting assistance offices on all the bases that we should, that register members of the military when they move. Military members move 3 times more frequently than civilians.
Of course.
So knowing where they're registered and when creates a problem.
All right, let's look at the requested ballots in 08 as compared to 2012. Look at the difference. 166,252 requested in 08. In 012, 55,000.
Yeah. It's a matter of priority, frankly. I think that's where we've got to be pounding on the desk and saying, at the highest levels, this should be a priority. And the problem is, you see, instead, this administration's suing Ohio over special consideration for veterans, rather than sort of looking around at the larger problem and saying, how do we get everyone who's overseas to register?
And we just put it up while you were talking, but let's take a quick look again. In 2008, before the MOVE Act, you had 16% never received ballots. It's too high, but still low. Look at in 2010, 29% never received their ballots. And imagine the 2012 number could be worse.
Yeah, the 2012 number could be worse, and it's really frustrating. I was a voting assistance officer in 2004. It was hard to work through each state's regulation, and I was in Guantanamo Bay. Imagine being in Afghanistan in the hills, taking on an enemy. You're requesting absentee ballots. Not an easy thing to do.
You know what? And what can we do, Pete?
Well, I think we need to put pressure on both the White House and the Pentagon. At the White House to say, hey, this is a problem. This is the most disenfranchised sort of general piece of the electorate that needs focus. And then at the Pentagon, we need to say, well, why haven't you implemented the MOVE Act? If the Pentagon wants to do something, it gets done. The MOVE Act was passed in 2009. We're 3 years later, and we don't have all the offices open on these bases. It's a matter of priority, and they need to get on it.
Yeah, believe me, if you can't get the military to follow orders, and if those orders aren't given, then we have nowhere to go. It's not like we're dealing with Occupy Wall Street when those people have no agendas and no way in life. So, Pete, it's disappointing. Pete Hegseth, thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian.